Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us at Coffee with Kay, where we're going to have a conversation, not a presentation. I'm super excited to introduce Ms. TJ Payton, and her husband will be joining us in a little bit. And we're going to be talking about male factor infertility and pathways to parenthood. As you guys may know, infertility affects 1 in 8 families. And I think for many, there's an assumption that it's always female factor issues like fibroids or endometriosis, but about half of the cases associated with infertility are actually male factor. So I'm super excited to have author TJ Payton online, who's going to share a little bit about her book, Semen Secrets. And we're also going to do a little bit of a deep dive into male factor infertility, what it is, what it isn't, and how families can get support and overcome. So I welcome everyone who's joined us live on Facebook and on Instagram. Send in your questions or email your questions. We're here to get support and support Ted today. So welcome, author TJ Payton and her hubby. Welcome.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yay. So before we get started, as you know, this is Coffee with Kay. So I'm going to end with asking you what's in your mug, if there's anything left. But let's just start with this as people continue to join us to prepare for this conversation, this lunchtime. Thanks for everybody for joining us in your lunch hour. Although this is only going to be 30 minutes. But what's in your mug? I'm interested. What's in your mug?
My mug has water in it.
Okay. And hubby, what's in your mug?
Iced hazelnut coffee.
All right. Oh, very fancy. Iced hazelnut coffee for lunch. I love it. And in my mug is chai latte. I have to have my chai every day. It makes me happy. So I'm super excited to be drinking that right now. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and get started. So again, welcome to everyone who's joined us live on Facebook and on Instagram. We're going to talk about semen secrets and male factor infertility today. And we have author TJ Payton along with her husband, and they're going to share a little bit about their journey. And also we're going to talk about her book, Semen Secrets, which is truths and confessions of a wife's journey through male infertility. So thank you guys for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your journey. And listen, even though we are thousands of miles away from each other, but just pretend I'm sitting across the table from you at a Starbucks. You know, we're just chit-chatting. Tell me about your story. Tell me about your journey.
So
we've got a number of waves coming in from Instagram. Hey, y'all. Hey. Anatomy, Rainbow, Kristen, the Eudaimonia Center. Hey, everybody. All right. And we've got a number of people who have logged in on Facebook, too. So male factor infertility. TJ, tell me a little bit about your journey.
So we have been together ever since 2001. And we got married fairly young in our early 20s. So we had a considerable amount of time in our mind to pursue starting our family. So we really got a chance to enjoy our marriage. About 2014, we started trying to figure out, why we weren't getting pregnant, what was going on. And so, of course, we went to the doctor to kind of figure out what was the problem. I had issues with fibroids and cysts. So, of course, I thought, it's me. I was the issue. But when I went to my doctor, it's like, no, you're fine, but your husband should get checked out. We didn't know anything about male infertility, hadn't really heard about it. So, we said, well, okay, he can get checked out. It shouldn't be an issue. And once he did go do the semen analysis, that's when we found out that he was not producing any sperm.
So, Javi, I would love to hear your perspective, kind of how you felt at that point.
Well, like you said, it probably was like a year of her, going back and forth to the doctor for cysts and fibroids. And so, when the doctor, recommended that I go, I was like, for what? But I went, and I mean, it was like devastating. Like, oh, it must be a mistake. Probably started a cycle of semen analysis every like 1 to 2 weeks, because they ask, fast from intercourse. I think like 3 days or so. So after about the fifth one, it was recommended that I see a specialist, a urologist, and go from one urologist, went to 2 different urologists, fertility specialists, even went to an endocrinologist. I kind of started feeling like an experiment or a lab rat. Different cycles of medication to just everything just changed all of a sudden.
Well, let's dig into that a little bit, because I think we're dealing really with the heart of the matter right now. Even though about half of the cases of infertility are attributed in some way to male factors, we at least in popular culture, most of the support is available for women. So I want to know, did you, in your journey, hubby, find anyone who you could talk to about this? Were there any organizations? Were you able to speak with it with your faith leaders? Was there anyone who you could identify with who was able to support you when you got this news that it may be male factor infertility?
No, and it's like I felt like I was the first person to ever hear of this. This is nothing I ever heard of in my whole life. So there wasn't anyone to talk to. Definitely had to reach out to my parents to get their perspective, their insight, to try to figure out what happened along the way. And they were just as devastated as well. Sent me to all the right doctors and whatnot.
Let's shed some truth on this thing. We already know that about half the cases are for males and half the cases are attributed in some way to female factor. So what you've shared with me is something that I've seen actually throughout the community. And I remember from my own journey, men need support too. Men may handle infertility a little different. So I think that brings into, it's a nice segue to semen secrets. So TJ, tell me a little bit about why you wrote this book and what you were hoping would happen, or what you were hoping to accomplish by writing Semen Secrets, Truths and Confessions of a Wife's Journey Through Male Infertility.
So I'm an avid journaler. That's how I communicate best, through writing. And a lot of times when you have feelings and emotions, you can't really say them verbally through communication. So I started journaling about the whole experience. That was a way I could get out my emotions, and definitely also trying to make sure I respect his space. There were a lot of bumping heads with this because, of course, you struggle personally as a woman with wanting to have a child, but you also have to support your husband. And there were times in our marriage when everything felt like it was falling apart. So just as he didn't have support, there were a lot of support for women who had infertility, but for wives, there was nothing to tell me, how do I help my husband? How do I support my spouse? How do I keep my marriage together? How do I keep from falling apart? And going through the stages of grief, you hear about them, but we were going through a different stage every day, a compilation of stages. So for me, the journal was a way to get my story out. The book was a way to help other people in our situation. I'm not sure if there are a lot of wives out there, a lot of partners out there who are dealing or have dealt with male factor infertility, definitely not wanting to talk about it because it's your husband and you want to respect his space. and also not wanting to feel like that elephant in the room. Every time somebody sees you, they want to ask how you're doing, what's going on, and you try to wear a smile, but it's difficult because you're really hurting about wanting to be a parent. So I wrote the book in hopes to, one, show people transparency, that you could be filled with faith and be God-fearing and still have doubts in your faith when you're hit with something that almost feels like a death in a sense. And how do we overcome to get to a place where we are now, where we come closer together than separating apart? Because a lot of what we were seeing, people would get a divorce because, this just kind of rocked their relationship.
So how did you all deal with that? I mean, I know that hopefully everyone will go out and get this book, which, by the way, is fantastic. And I really celebrate you for having the courage to publish your journal and to let people see what happened, and how your story, I think at the end of the story, there's kind of it's a note of hopefulness, but we still don't get, well, how did the chapter end? What happened? So tell us a little bit about what you did. And if you don't mind, give us the scoop. I need some, what is it? Spoiler. I need a spoiler alert. How did it end?
So it ended when I finished writing the book. We still didn't have a child. Weren't sure how we were going to have a child. We looked into all the different methods, from your IVFs to your sperm donation, to surrogacy, adoption. And we actually pursued adoption. I'm going to talk about it in the book prior to, but it was a lot of hoops when you're trying to do a state adoption, a significant amount of hoops. And so at the end, I just kind of said, well, God, if you're going to give us a baby, you're going to have to do it, and it's going to have to be effortless. So we had some friends of ours encourage us to try to pursue adoption again. Of course, private adoptions are a significant amount of money, but we went ahead with the home study, and we finally completed the home study in about September of last year. And 2 weeks later, we got a call that a mother was wanting to give up her baby for adoption.
Wow, wait a minute. Did you say 2 weeks?
2 weeks after we finished our home study. Wow. And so we went from there. And now our daughter was born in January of this year, January 8th. And so we became proud parents of a little girl. But what's funny is this year it's really hit me. Like last April, I didn't even see this, see her. And what was inspiring is that when we talked to the birth mom, she actually said she had seen us in a dream. And so that made it even more like significant. Okay, somebody out there was listening to us. Somebody out there saw our tears. So if I had to write another chapter, it would be that, God never wastes your tears. Even though you feel like, your tears are wasted, because we cried a whole river, a stream. I think our stream is out there with our name on it. But he didn't waste our tears. So we're very excited to finally be parents.
Wow. Okay. Well, see, so there's a happy ending, but I want to say for everybody, you guys you persevered, but there was a lot that went into that. And I know you are the more vocal party, TJ. Hubby seems like he's a little bit more reserved, and that's okay. That's okay. But we want to deal with the men today, and we want to help them. We want to help give them some tools so that they can persevere. So, hubby, I need you to give me a little bit more about what you did as you were waiting. You get this devastating news. What are some things that you can encourage men to do so that they don't grow weary during the wait?
Love on your wife. That's something that I did not do. I can't change the past, but it was a struggle for her. It was she was angry.
Tell me a little bit about that. Why was she angry?
Well, I mean, we've done everything right. And I mean, we're not perfect people. No one's perfect, but you know, I mean, we're the perfect couple. We have the perfect education. We have the perfect jobs, the resource. I mean, you know, we got married. We didn't have a child before marriage. Everything was or appeared perfect. So to because of all the things that could or would happen to a couple or in your life, this is the furthest thing from your mind. So I mean that's our dream. You know, you want to grow up, marry well, and have a nice house and fill it with nice children, and that changed. And we did everything we could. Went through all the surgeries, took all the medications, and there was nothing that could be changed. And like she said, her quote is, God doesn't waste your tears. But so to get back to the question, I would love on her more. Let her support me. I did not let her support me. I felt as though she was, the enemy, because it is me. It is my problem. You can't help me. You can't fix this. The doctors can't fix it. There's nothing for us to talk about. And so I think that added to her frustration.
Yeah, certainly.
It felt like it helped me. So in retrospect, love on your spouse. Let them be angry. You know what I'm saying? I know she was angry. She didn't have to tell me she was angry. Sometimes she did. But, let's go ahead and have those conversations, put those feelings to the side and, work on us. How can I help you? How can you help me? In terms of finding somebody to talk to, it's hard to find someone to talk to that hasn't, that can't, sympathize. It's one thing to empathize with a person, but, I Googled, she Googled, I tried to find even a website, a story, something about, hey, this happened to me and this is what I did, but I couldn't find that. All I found was just research about, male infertility and Klinefelters and all the different diagnoses, but nothing as to this is what I went through and this is how I handled it and fixed it.
Right.
But maybe if I was a little bit more vulnerable and open, at least I could have found that person to empathize with me and try to support me, but I didn't. So I would say try to open up. Whoever that best friend is. I didn't even reach out to those people because I felt isolated. I felt ashamed. So I would say just let your guard down some.
Let your guard down. The truth is, even though you might have felt like you were the only one, guaranteed, you know people. You are very close to people who've also struggled with male factor infertility or whose families have dealt with infertility, even if they haven't shared, because everybody's so afraid of being judged and being thought of in a negative way. But what I personally found when I was open and transparent was, other people were open and transparent. So when I shared first, then they said, me too. I've struggled with that also. So then that allowed me to feel not alone. Now, unfortunately, I didn't share until after I had my kids and we were on Good Morning America. So, kind of that kind of happened in a way that ideally, we could have shared privately. But I realized that by sharing my testimony, it didn't make me smaller. If anything, it gave me community and it helped others feel like they were not alone. So tell me, what have you done, if anything, and I'm putting you on the spot here, and there's only just, me and millions of people on Facebook and Instagram who are watching this, but what have you done differently now that you have brought home this beautiful baby in January? And if you haven't done anything different, why?
Me personally, I talk about the situation more. I mean, people ask questions. You know, we're very social people, so no one ever saw a baby bump. So, but now they see a baby.
Right.
So, so I'm a little bit more open to talk about it. Our child is just really kind of healed me in a sense, in terms of
Beautiful.
these last 6 years of chaos. I mean, don't even matter. I mean, I literally do not think about it. The only reminder of it is that I am on daily medication, for the rest of my life. But outside of that, I mean, this is the best thing that could have happened.
What a blessing to hear that. This is the best thing that could have happened. Woo!
It was the best for us, the best for me, and definitely the best for her.
Awesome.
I couldn't imagine it any other way, and I really mean that wholeheartedly. I know Tanisha is definitely, TJ is definitely, enjoys it and shocked.
I love it. I love it. So I'm going to remind everyone, we've got a number of people who joined us on Instagram. And I want to remind everyone, share your questions, send us your questions, your comments. We want to hear from you. We've got the author right here, and she and her hubby are happy to answer any questions related to the book. But we want to hear from you. We want to know what your thoughts are. I know this is something that nobody wants to talk about. I mean, I feel like it's almost like underground locker room talk, where even though everything is, up for discussion in the locker room, everything except for infertility. And particularly if there's a male factor, if there's a sperm issue. So that I love the title, Semen Secrets, because that's stuff that nobody wants to talk about, but we got to talk about it, right?
Right.
Amen. Amen. Well, so I've got we're almost out of time here. We've got about 5 minutes left, but I want to ask one question. Did you have an aha, and this is for TJ, did you have an aha moment or breakthrough moment that strengthened you along your pathway?
I did. My aha moment was we went to a conference, a marriage conference, and they talked about loving on your spouse, and they talked about priorities and order, and about when you get married, it's God, then your children, then God, then your husband, then your children, then everything else. And what I got pricked is that I was putting this child before my husband, and the child wasn't even here. Right. So I was already out of alignment and out of order before I ever even started the process. So for me, that was an aha moment. And my husband has to take testosterone. Well, he was trying natural ways, but he was getting sicker and sicker and sicker, getting weaker, getting a lot of weight. And our urologist kept saying he needs to be on synthetic testosterone. But I knew that once he got on synthetic testosterone, science says we would no longer be able to try to have the baby naturally. And, the struggle was, do I give up on my dream of wanting to be pregnant and have that whole experience, or do I save my husband's life? Because at the end of the day, when our child grows up, it's going to be me and him, and I'm making it so it just might be me. So I had to make a decision to say, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I need to make sure my husband is okay and put him first.
Amen.
So when I finally put him first, that's when I healed myself, because I was able to let go. And that was my aha moment.
So yeah, that's very powerful. So choose your spouse. You got to choose your spouse, choose your partner. And you got to look at what's the proper order. But also, I'm wondering if you've ever struggled like with any other medical issue, did you have the same kind of concerns, whether it be maybe getting a vaccine for chickenpox, or if you ever had a cold and you took, I don't know, something, for the cold, or if you had a headache, if you ever took a Tylenol, like, did you have the same concerns about taking medicine for those issues as you did with the fertility, or are you just, someone who kind of shies away from any type of intervention?
I shy away from intervention. I really like to look at side effects. I really like to, sometimes doctors are pill pushers. So I really like to look at the long-term effects.
Pill pushers.
Some, not all, not you, but some. I don't need a prescription for a cold. It'll go away on its own. I don't need antibiotics and 3 antibiotics, whatnot. But so, I really had to look at the long-term effects of what I was putting in my body. I knew one of the medications when I started doing the HCG. I knew what that could possibly do to my body, and it did what it did. But I waited as long as possible. But I was like, well, I need an option. So yeah, I was resistant to some of the medications, but I mean, I went through them all. Plus the cost involved, they're not cheap.
Major issue. Mm-hmm.
Insurance doesn't cover them, and so those shots daily, I think twice a day. I mean, it became very, very expensive. So. Right.
Well, I'm glad that you made the decision that you guys felt was in the best interest of your family. And I'm really glad that you all have a rainbow or a pot of gold, a golden child at the end of your rainbow, and that you guys were able to overcome. But I also want to encourage those who are still struggling, because you're not the only ones. And I'm really grateful that TJ and her husband were willing to come on. But I can just tell you that there are so many men who are struggling, and I would encourage you to do what hubby suggested, which is consider being a little bit transparent with the men that you trust that are in your circle. Like maybe if you're in a church and your small group, or, if you have people that you're close to at work that, you have bonded with both professionally and personally, consider letting your guard down, like hubby suggested, just a little bit, because you may find that someone who you're already connected with has struggled with this or has some experience, and then you can feel not so alone on this journey. You guys have been amazing. I appreciate you for coming on. Do you have any final words of wisdom or support to offer before we finish?
I would say just keep going. You can't stop your life because of infertility. You have to keep living, and be open to whatever your path to fertility is, even if it's a path where you don't want to take. Sometimes the choice is not your own. So you have to be open to letting your guard down and just being, and not trying to force anything. And it's tough. And also let yourself feel, and don't let anyone tell you that it's not okay to feel, because sometimes we wear a mask because we try to shield ourselves from people knowing, and vice versa. And it's very hard to do or to heal if you keep on putting a Band-Aid over a wound and not letting it air out.
Let it air out. I like that. Hubby, do you have any final thoughts?
It took me a long time to believe it, but it's not your fault.
Woo! I just felt that somewhere. In my shining eye. Okay. I just felt that. That went deep. It's not your fault. It's good.
It's not your fault, and you really got to sit back and count your blessings. There's a lot of stuff in my life I have not had to deal with that could be much worse than the infertility. Right. Yes, it's disappointing, but you know, we were able to see this through, and everybody's not able to see that through. So at least in, you know, my storm, my anger, my issue, I was able to see it through. So it's not my fault, and things could be worse.
And I encourage every single person who's watching right now, or those who will watch in the future, to go see a reproductive endocrinologist or a urologist who has experience working with male factor infertility if you are concerned about this. Anyone who's being treated for infertility should have a male factor exam in addition to female factor exams before you get treatment, because you don't want to get to the point where you have spent thousands of dollars on medication and treatment for the female to only learn that a $99, and I think you can actually get these tests done from samples that, like, you can get it, you can mail it in. They sell tests at the Walgreens for $50. But you spend all this thousands of dollars to only find out that it is male factor. And male factor, if you decide to go down the more medical treatment road, is you know, the type of support available is very different if it's male factor, and it may be a lot less expensive depending on what you decide to do than if it's female factor. So there is support available, and you are certainly not alone on this journey. Thank you so much for everyone who tuned in today. We look forward to seeing you next time. And also, let me remind you about this awesome book, Semen Secrets, Truths and Confessions of a Wife's Journey Through Infertility. Thank you, author TJ Payton. And for those of you who may be in need of financial support for infertility, the Cade Foundation does have a family building grant that will provide up to $10,000 for fertility treatment or adoption. And for more information, visit us online at cadefoundation.org/grants. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful week. And TJ and Habib, remind us, what was in that cup? What was in those cups?
Ice hazelnut coffee.
And water.
And mine had chai latte, and it is officially almost empty right now. So you guys be well. Have a great day. Hold the line. I'm going to close us out of the broadcast and chat with you for a moment. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you guys.